Okay, tips for locating and catching white sea bass. And let me begin by saying I am no expert at catching white sea bass. You know, I've never claimed to be. What I'm going to be telling you here is pretty much just methods that have worked for me with what my experience is fishing for those fish. So it's going to be from Palos Verdes, Southern California, Palos Verdes, to Dana Point and out at Catalina Island. I don't really know, what goes on outside of that area. So if you're in this area, this is just stuff that works for me. But like anything, I'm just some dude on YouTube spewing advice so just take it at face value. You're gonna have be of the personality type that you have a certain amount of patience and resolve. The resolve being that, you're going to put the time in. If you decide to fish for these things, you're going to put the time in to exclusively fish for them, which means, a lot of times waiting out a bite, not catching nothing. And a lot of times fishing for one bite, not all the time, but, sometimes they bite wide open. But for the most part, you have to have that mindset that you're fishing for that one bite and you want to make the most of that opportunity. Here's a great example of fishing for that one bite. We were set up here at the Palisades, is the backside of Catalina. We were set up on an area of squid here. We had really tough squid that night. Didn't get that much sleep. It was drizzling the whole time, soaking wet that whole night. And about 6:30 in the morning, I was soaking a bait in the forward rod holder, and the thing goes off, and picked it up, and the thing went screaming into the beach, fought it for a while, and this was the fish I wound up with. Second best one I ever caught, and that was it for the morning. We only got that one bite, so that's what I'm talking about, fishing for the one bite. If you want to do it on your own boat and get that satisfaction, then, I'll kind of walk you through, what's going to probably be your best options on how to catch one of these things or locate them, and then hopefully follow that up by catching them. So there's pretty much, for me, there's four main environments that I like to fish. And the first one's going to be the bait grounds where you catch your squid. And for me, that's always been the most productive. My favorite method is fishing them on the beach, shallow water. That's probably takes the most skill, just in reading conditions and everything else that's associated with that. Kelp line fishing, and then mostly on the coast, it's going to be set up on structured spots. But we will go ahead and we're going to start with the bait ground fishing. Throughout the years that I've been fishing for white sea bass, and that's over the course of 3+ decades, there's no doubt that the best results that I've had when I've been specifically targeting those things has been on the bait grounds where I catch my bait. Now, white sea bass fishing, there's no need for it to be painful. We catch plenty of fish in the middle of the day, bright sun overhead. When it comes to fishing the squid grounds, 60% of the time, the weather is going to be, and the conditions are going to be anywhere from pleasant to manageable. The other 40% of the time, it's going to be marginal to miserable. So that's something that you just got to be ready to deal with. I mean, for anybody that's spent the night on the backside of Catalina, May, June, in a 10-mile-per-hour southeast breeze with an uphill current and 3 to 5 foot of closely spaced wind swell coming down the island, taking it on the starboard stern quarter, because that's where you take it, is they know what I'm talking about. You know, you're not really going to be getting that much sleep that night, but you know, I mean, that's not really the norm. Most of the time, it's fine out there. So, you know, you're going to be doing this at night. And let's talk a little bit about safety and just being smart about things. So, you know, a lot of things could happen at night. You can bump into stuff. You know, there's all kinds of stuff floating around. You know, you get big old wad of kelp wrapped up in your prop. I hit a whale once. That was in broad daylight. You know, there's just all kinds of stuff, mishaps. You're going to have some activity back there, light boats if you're there during the week. Seiners. If a seiner's in a set and he's drifting down on you, there's nothing that he can do. You're going to have to pull your anchor and get out of his way. If you're, you know, asleep, you know, that's not a good thing. So, you know, you just got to be smart about things when you're fishing on the backside. So, anyways, getting down to the subject of squid. Telling you how to find squid, locate squid is beyond the scope of this video. That's a whole nother thing in itself. But I will say this, you know, no squid, no fish. So it's imperative that, you know, you get on a area of squid, you know, hopefully where they're attaching their eggs to the bottom. That's a whole discipline in itself, you know, being able to figure out, you know, how to get into those areas. You know, hopefully somebody that you know had told you. But you know, there's signal that you could see there if you get there when the sun's still out. You know, there'll be birds and seals are just a nightmare these days. Back in the 90s when we were fishing these things, seals were never an issue. I would never stop at the bait bars to get bait. I would just go straight out to Catalina because I was always confident that we were not going to have a problem making bait. Now, that being said, I'd always have like a 10-pound block of frozen squid from prior trips. So, you know, you need to locate the squid and mount up on an area of squid. And generally, we would do our squid fishing would be, I'm going to say 82 to 106 feet. Kind of seem the numbers are the numbers that kind of seem to be in my mind. With, for some reason, 96 feet being the magic number, not only for finding squid, but also for following that up with game fish. And there is no doubt about it that the majority of the fish that we catch when we are fishing on the bait grounds is going to be yellowtail. 15 to 1 yellowtail to white sea bass. There's no problem. I have no problem with that. I love catching yellowtail. They're my favorite fish to catch. And usually the ones you get out there are a big, beautiful gray. You know, most of the times when you're out there on the bait grounds, you're going to get yellowtail. You're also going to get a sprinkling of halibut, sometimes sand sharks, and bat rays and horn sharks and other stuff if you're fishing too close to the bottom. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And as much of a nuisance as they may be, I mean, black sea bass are on the rebound, and we catch our fair share of blacks out there too, which in my experience, they seem to shut off the bite, and I just as soon not deal with them because they're kind of a pain to get them back down to the bottom, and just dealing with them in general, and some of them can be pretty big. So that's kind of how it goes on the squid grounds. Now, probably the most important piece of gear you're going to have when you're fishing on the squid grounds is going to be your boat, and properly set up boat. And I'm going to say for me, with, you know, when I got my Davis Cortez in 1996, they finished building that for me. That really made a big improvement in the fishing I was doing. It went from, you know, it just took it to a whole nother level, and you know, that was mainly because of the boat, and it just gave me that. It opened up the access to a whole nother world of fishing.
Here's a picture of my Davis Cortez 22. If you see in the picture, it's a very capable boat. Pilot house kept us out of the weather, had a little cuddy cabin down below so we could get some sleep. Nice high gunnel height, performed two functions. It kept us in the boat, and it kept any water from getting over the transom in case we were anchored in a position where our stern would be towards the swell. Most important thing on it, though, is if you look at it, is there's a 16-pound Bruce anchor up on the bow. We actually had 40 feet of chain on that, quarter-inch proof coil, and 300 feet of half-inch nylon rode, because you want to make sure that, when you set your anchor down at night, that you're not going to be going anywhere. Another feature on the boat here for fishing sea bass marked in the red is the rod holders that I had mounted on the rails. That way we could put some additional lines out, fishing dropper loops and jigs, in addition to the rods that we're holding in our hands, just to increase our odds of hooking more fish.
So what I'll do is I'll go over some of the areas on the chart where we've found squid in the past, and some of the gear we use and some of the techniques. But like I said, it all hinges around getting on top of bait and fishing that bait. We don't really do a whole lot of night fishing. I mean, I would have a rod out, basically no dropper loop. I mean, we would fish in the evening when we got there and the sun was still up. But once the lights went out, the sun went down and the lights came on, we're focused on catching crowding squid or catching it whatever way. If you got to pick them off one at a time with the braille, or, resort to breaking out the jigs. I mean, some of the best game fish fishing that I've had on the squid grounds has been the nights we couldn't crowd it, and we were just jigging it, and maybe we made like 50 pieces of bait the whole night, stayed up all night. But at night, we're working on the squid, trying to get bait. I would have jigs out on the other side of the boat, and basically for me, once I got my bait, I was going to get a couple hours of sleep, and then I'd wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and start fishing for the yellowtail and the sea bass. So, if you want, you could stay up all night if that's your thing. Not for me. I do need some sleep, and I'm the guy that has to drive the boat, and my favorite fishing anyways was the daytime stuff that we did. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get to the charts here.